Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Welcome to the video. Shrimps with Sweaters here with another amazing aquarium video. Except that this is my first one. We'll work on the intro. Seriously though, all jokes aside, thank y'all so much for joining me for this first video. And thank you for all the support for those who have been supporting me for a while and for those who are hopefully going to start supporting me. I wanted to make this first video not necessarily a educational one or a fun one, but just something that kind of gives y'all more insight into what got me into the hobby and what I plan to do with it. So I'm not going to necessarily be going over any of my tanks or anything. I'm just going to be kind of giving y'all my background and just letting y'all know what y'all can expect in the future. So I want to start off by talking about what got me into the hobby and why I'm so passionate about it. So whenever I was about 4 or 5, I kind of figured out that I always want to work with animals. At the time I wanted to be a veterinarian, and that kind of changed into I want to be a zoologist, and I kind of went through all the phases of like paleontology and all the sort of, animal related sciences. Eventually I got stuck on marine biology by the time I was in like 4th or 5th grade. And so ever since then, I've kind of just been stuck on that. I've always loved the ocean and just marine life in general. And so I was born and raised in Amarillo, Texas. If y'all don't know where that is, that's very tippy top of Texas pretty much. So whenever I was it was actually after 4th grade, in between 4th and 5th grade year, that summer, I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas. And I guess that's what kind of solidified my love for the ocean, because Corpus Christi is 10 hours south of Amarillo, about 700 miles, and it's right next to the ocean. Where we lived was about half a mile outside of Corpus, but same difference. We got to go to the beach, once a month or so, and I got my fair share. I decided to set up my first fish tank in I guess it would have been 2011, probably, maybe even 2010. And at the time I didn't have a phone or anything like that, so I was buying books. And I was reading the books cover to cover. Eventually, I thought I did enough research. I went ahead and bought my first tank. This was all with my own money. Of course, at the time I'm 11, and I'm buying all this stuff off of chores I'm doing around the house and birthday money and Christmas money. So it wasn't like I had a whole bunch to spend. So eventually I go to, I don't remember if it's Petco or PetSmart, but I buy the tank and my parents buy the stand for me because we made that deal. And so I spent about $100 on the tank, my parents spent about $100 on the stand, and then everything else was up to me. Live rock, filter, all that sort of stuff was completely in my control. And so this is saltwater, by the way, if y'all haven't figured that one out yet. So I was setting up my saltwater tank and it ended up doing really well. I filled it up March 12th, 2012, so on my 12th birthday was whenever I put water into it, and I let it cycle. I had some invertebrates after a while, and then eventually I got into fish. And the fish were a lot of fun. I never got into coral, partially because I made a whole bunch of really, not necessarily stupid beginner mistakes, but beginner mistakes. I mean, they didn't cost me the tank or anything like that. It wasn't like it went straight downhill. It was just a whole bunch of little stuff here and there that if I would have done it to start out with, it would have been a lot better of an experience. So, for example, if you're into saltwater, you probably know what a protein skimmer is. That was one of the things that I just didn't know about at the time. So I skipped out on a protein skimmer, and I think it would have helped in the long run if I had gotten one. And then another thing is like a power head, just to create current in the water. I didn't have one of those at first, and once again, I think that would have helped maybe a little bit. I don't know how much, but anyways, I had a fairly nice fish and invertebrate community tank. And so eventually we moved. This was the the Thanksgiving break of my junior year. And we moved to Bushland, Texas, or pretty close to Amarillo, Texas. That's the house that I'm in right now, is my parents. And so I decided that I wanted another tank because I had to get rid of that one and leave it there whenever we moved. We just didn't really have the space for it. We were moving into a smaller house, and moving a 36-gallon saltwater tank 700 miles is not the easiest thing to do. So I left the tank with a friend, and I sold all the fish back to my local fish store, and basically just kind of forgot about it. I guess not really forgot about it, but whenever I moved here, I got my 10-gallon and I set it up. So behind me you can see my 10-gallon tank. This is not the exact same scape that I had whenever I set it up, but this is the exact same tank that I had. And at first I really didn't have anything in it. I had a Narite snail and some dragonstone and some gravel, and then the filter, and that was basically it. At first it wasn't much. I let it cycle and all that sort of stuff. And then my very first fish were the neon tetras. I don't know if y'all can see those, but those were my very first fish, and that was kind of as a memorial to a fish tank I had as a little kid. So as a kid, my parents had gotten me a tank that was half aquarium, half terrarium. So basically it was a regular sized tank, but then it had a divider in the middle. So one side I had an African pixie bullfrog, on the other side I had an aquarium. And my favorite fish in that aquarium were neon tetras. I had 3 of them. So starting off my tank, that was the very first thing that I got, was 3 neon tetras. Eventually I realized that they need a little bit more community, so I ended up getting more. So right now I've got 4 neon tetras and 4 rummy nose tetras, and they school together, so it works out pretty well. And so without going into too much detail on that tank right now, because that can be another video, that was what got me back into the hobby. I took a break for a few months. I don't even think it was quite a year, but it was, I guess it was a real eye-opener. So at that point I basically realized that aquariums meant a lot to me. They were a big part of my life, and I kind of at that point decided I wasn't going to go without having an aquarium. And so I graduated from Bushland High School a couple months later, or I guess a few months later, and I ended up going down to Texas A&M Corpus Christi for college. And as soon as I got down there, within about a month, I ended up setting up a 5-gallon tank. And my original plan was it was just going to be a saltwater bay tank, is what they call it down there. And basically it's a collection of just stuff that you find at the beach. So I started out setting it up, just running it with water, testing everything, the equipment. I got a Marineland 5-gallon portrait tank and set it up, and it was pretty nice. I eventually went to the beach and got some oyster clusters that looked pretty cool, and some of them had like some barnacles and stuff. And I got a whole bunch of crabs. Some of them not necessarily by choice, they just kind of came in the oyster clusters. And so I had a whole bunch of crabs and hermit crabs and some shrimp and stuff like that in there. And it didn't do too bad. I had it throughout that semester, and then come Christmas break, I basically just left it running. I wasn't too worried about it because I had basically created a little ecosystem. And so I left it over Christmas break. At the time I also had 3 betas. I still have 2 of them right now. One of them ended up going to my sister's class as a class pet, so that's a whole another story. But I had 3 betas that I ended up giving to my local fish store to take care of for over the break. They gladly accepted. I've been using them for years. And then the tank just sat there. And so whenever I got back a month later from Christmas break, looked at the tank, and it was basically just covered in algae, but everything was doing pretty good. I mean, all the crabs and snails and stuff were still in there. And it was okay. It was a good tank, but I decided I wanted something more. So I ended up setting up my 5-gallon freshwater tank. So this tank that you see behind me right here is my 5-gallon tank. And like I said, it started out saltwater actually, and eventually I decided it was time for a change. So I went ahead and set this up, and honestly this is one of my favorite tanks. This is all original from whenever I set up the freshwater tank. Laid out the dragonstone, laid out the driftwood. Actually, I found all the driftwood at the beach and basically planted it, and here it is today. I've just been keeping up with it, and I like the way it looks. Once again, another video for another, yeah. So I set that one up, and instantly I was in love with it. It was amazing. I put one of my betas in there and got me a dwarf crayfish to put in there with them, and it was perfect in my opinion. I was so excited. I was so happy. It was the best scape I'd ever done, and especially with a portrait tank. I don't know if you've ever scaped a portrait tank, a tall tank. It's a lot more difficult than a horizontal tank because you have a lot more room to fill going upwards, and a lot of times you use a lot of rocks, and rocks usually aren't that tall, or you risk them falling over on top of your shrimp, fish, crab, shrimp, whatever. And so that was the biggest struggle, was trying to figure that out. So that was the first time I had used driftwood. And so I guess kind of going back, backtracking a little bit, whenever I set up the saltwater tank, I had made a private Snapchat just with my friends, because I had a whole bunch of people that were interested in my tanks, and so it kind of went on from there. And of course, over Christmas break, I didn't keep up with it, and eventually it got deleted just because I wasn't active on my private Snapchat. So I decided whenever I got back, and I turned it into a freshwater, that it might be interesting to try creating a Instagram. And so that's where originally it was Hunter's Aquariums showed up. Now it's of course Shrimps with Sweaters. And so whenever I started that out, it was Hunter's Aquariums, and I just kind of started getting back into the swing of things. I had 2 tanks set up, and it just kind of grew from there. So in March, I went to Aquashell at Dallas, had a blast, got even deeper into the hobby, got another tank, set that up, and got some supplies for my vivarium, getting it ready for dart frogs. And so the next tank got set up in March. That would be my 5-gallon or my 4-gallon Blackwater crystal red shrimp tank. So I had the 4-gallon crystal red shrimp tank, and then I ended up setting up the vivarium for dart frogs coming in May. So a couple months later I set that up. So at that point I was in my college apartment, and I had a 5-gallon, a 4-gallon, and a vivarium, and we were supposed to have no more than 1 tank. And so I was kind of already breaking the rule, and honestly I didn't care. I was living my best life. So that's kind of how all that started, and eventually I just grew on Instagram, and now I'm over 1,000 followers. And so that was pretty awesome to see, just in a year's time, just how much growth and how many people are actually interested in the same stuff as me. I just never realized there's such a big community for it. And my whole entire purpose is to just kind of share that with everyone else, and just everything that I learn and enjoy I can pass on to others. So that leads me to what I'm going to be doing right now and hereforth. Going forward with my hobby, the Instagram and this YouTube channel. Basically, what I want to get out of it is just a way that I can continue to share what I enjoy and basically, in a way, make sure that nobody gets left out. I know that there's been a lot of times in my life, and not just in the hobby, but in other places where I've seen other people enjoy stuff, and I'm wondering why I don't enjoy that. And I want to be able to share this with everyone else that is interested in it. The YouTube channel is basically just going to be a place where people can go to have fun and enjoy learning about the hobby in different aspects of it, whether you're never had an aquarium in your life and you're just wanting to learn about setting one up maybe, or even if you're a very experienced aquarist and you've been doing this for years, but maybe you're looking to learn something new or try something different. I want that to be my channel where you can go and do all that. So I guess going forth with this, I have a lot of really cool ideas, I think, and I hope to share that with y'all in at least the coming year. Not sure what this is going to look like. Hopefully, if everything works out, maybe I'll have 1,000 followers by the end of this year on YouTube, and if that's the case, then I can start making money off my videos. And if I can continue doing that, then I'm just going to build more tanks until y'all tell me to stop. I've got another 8 tanks planned as of right now, ranging from more freshwater to brackish, salt, and then more vivariums. So I've got a lot of plans, and basically my limit is whatever y'all tell me to. If I don't get the support that I'm wanting, then I'll probably still do it, I just won't share it with y'all. So make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll catch y'all next time.